Oscar Piastri's title challenge has entered a dangerous phase. 2 months ago, he looked firmly in control. 7 victories, a 34-point lead, and a McLaren team operating with sharp precision. Now the situation has flipped completely. Since Monza, almost everything that could go wrong has done so. A team order that left him frustrated, a disastrous Baku weekend he called the worst of my career, and a run of 5 races without a single podium. That decline hasn't gone unnoticed. Not even by rivals. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff admitted after Brazil that he'd examined Piastri's telemetry, calling his tyre management impressive despite the result. It was a rare nod of respect from a competitor, and one that underlined how Piastri's season, even in struggle, has captured attention across the grid. At McLaren, though, the atmosphere has been less forgiving. The Monza team order that told him to let Lando Norris through after a slow pit stop wasn't just about strategy. It altered the psychological balance inside the team. "We said a slow pit stop was part of racing," Piastri said on the radio before giving way. It wasn't open defiance, but it showed how unsettled he was. Those moments matter when your biggest rival sits across the same garage. Then came Brazil. Another blow. A 10-second penalty for contact with Kimi Antonelli erased a potential podium and extended Norris's lead to 24 points. Former drivers such as Jolyon Palmer and Martin Brundle called the penalty harsh, arguing that Piastri was punished for being cautious rather than reckless. McLaren boss Andrea Stella agreed, saying the responsibility should have been shared. So, is this the start of an irreversible slide or the beginning of one last recovery? Mathematically, he's still in it. 3 rounds left, 83 points available. But mentally, the question is no longer about speed, it's about composure, because this title fight isn't over yet. The real question now is, how can Oscar Piastri turn this around when everything seems to be against him? We'll break down exactly that, from team orders to technical issues, and even why Toto Wolff's remarks might matter more than they seem. To understand where his title bid stands and what it will take to reignite it, if you want to stay on top of every twist in this championship, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. Piastri's problems trace back to Monza. That race should have been another statement of control. He was running second, comfortably ahead of Norris after a quicker stop. But when McLaren ordered him to hand the place back, the tone of his season changed. He complied, but his radio comment, "Slow pit stops are part of racing," captured a small loss of faith. In the context of a tight title battle, that's the kind of decision that can echo for weeks. From there, pressure began to build. Baku was meant to be the reset weekend, but it turned into the opposite. He arrived 31 points clear, then crashed in qualifying and again on the opening lap. On F1's Beyond the Grid podcast, he admitted it was a combination of quite a few things that happened in the lead-up that weren't the most helpful. Among them were a Friday engine problem, disrupted rhythm, and overdriving in an effort to make amends for Monza. Coupled with unpredictable new C6 tyres, it became the perfect storm. "It was the worst weekend I've ever had in racing," he said. But probably the most useful. That perspective may prove decisive. Every champion faces a moment when the fight becomes less about machinery and more about recovery. Piastri's maturity, his readiness to analyse rather than deflect, explains why he's still in the hunt. But reflection doesn't automatically convert to points. Since Baku, his form has plateaued while Norris's has soared. The 34-point advantage has turned into a 24-point deficit in just over 2 months. Martin Brundle broke the situation down into 5 causes: pressure, luck, setup, track traits, and Norris himself. He called Monza the turning point, but stressed the situation was not irreversible. That phrase might yet define Piastri's season. The numbers confirm that hope isn't gone. 83 points remain on the table, and Norris can't mathematically seal the title in Las Vegas, but numbers don't reveal the mental fatigue. Mark Webber, Piastri's manager and a former title contender, labelled this stage a test of deep motivations. "He's had a tough run," Webber told Channel 4, "but he's not low on motivation. It's obviously an incredible journey so early in his career to fight for a world title." He added that few reach such a level this quickly. There was Lewis Hamilton, but not many others. Still, motivation alone won't fix everything. In Brazil, frustration became visible. The 10-second penalty for Antonelli contact didn't just cost a podium, it reignited debate about the FIA's consistency. Palmer argued that Piastri was unfairly punished. "Once you're on the inside line, you can't just disappear," he said. He was trying to avoid the collision, but the space he expected wasn't there. Stella defended his driver. "It's true we saw a small lock-up," he explained, "but he maintained his line, which is what matters. The responsibility should be shared with Kimi, because he knew Oscar was there." It was a subtle way of protecting one driver without undermining another, the kind of diplomacy McLaren now relies on. Off-track, things took a bizarre turn. An Australian burger chain, Grilled, had promised free burgers every time Piastri made the podium. As his form dipped, fans joked about a burger curse. Grilled leaned into the humour, posting an apology for creating a burger so good it changed the course of F1 history, and even releasing certified cursed t-shirts. Trivial, sure, but it captured how quickly narratives shift when a title bid falters. Meanwhile, whispers of internal favouritism surfaced online. Whispers dismissed by Toto Wolff after reviewing telemetry data. "He kept the tyres in a perfect window," Wolff said. "He was 5 or 6 tenths faster than both of ours at the end. The window is so small. If you don't hit it, you don't have performance." A rare defence from a rival team boss, effectively silencing conspiracy theories. Guenther Steiner, ever the straight talker, offered a harsher take. The former Haas boss predicted that if Piastri fails to win the title, he'll eventually move on. "He should, and I think he will," Steiner said. "He's a good driver, and change sometimes is good. He just needs to regroup over the winter and come back stronger." It was both compliment and warning. Elite drivers rarely stay patient if team balance feels off, and balance is exactly what this season's story revolves around. McLaren's resurgence has been remarkable. 2 front-running drivers, a competitive car, and management finally clicking. Yet success brings fragility. When both drivers are contenders, neutrality becomes almost impossible. The Monza order made tactical sense, but emotional damage lingered. Norris's subsequent wins have only widened that rift. McLaren knows harmony now matters as much as outright pace. Technically, Stella has noted that Piastri struggles more on low-grip circuits, Baku and Sao Paulo, highlighting how narrow his operating window is. Yet Stella also pointed to positives. From a performance point of view, the second and third stints were quite encouraging. That suggests raw speed isn't the problem. Execution is mathematically. Norris can't clinch the title in Las Vegas, meaning Piastri still has at least one meaningful chance. What he needs is something he hasn't had since the summer break: a clean, controversy-free weekend. That sounds simple, but in Formula One, control under pressure is often the hardest thing, because beneath every result lies a more human struggle. This isn't just about catching Norris, it's about proving Piastri can absorb pressure and adapt under scrutiny. He's already shown he learns quickly, calling Baku the most useful weekend because of what it taught him. Now he must turn those lessons into performance. There's also the matter of his relationship with McLaren itself. Team orders, equality and trust will decide whether he feels genuinely supported. If Piastri believes the playing field is level, confidence will rebuild. If not, as Steiner hinted, restlessness could follow. McLaren maintains both sides are treated equally and publicly. Both drivers project respect. But internally, every call now carries title-level stakes. For Piastri, this is the first real test of resilience. His first 2 seasons proved he belonged. This one will show if he can endure. At 24, he's being compared with world champions, both privilege and burden. Yet, as Webber reminded, a lot of drivers never even fight for a world title once in their career. You've got to find the positives. Heading into Las Vegas, Qatar and Abu Dhabi, those positives remain. The car has pace, the gap is recoverable, and confidence can return with one clean weekend. The path back isn't easy. It never is when your fiercest rival shares your garage. But it's still open. And as the spotlight turns to these final 3 rounds, one question hangs over the paddock. What does Oscar Piastri need to prove in these final races? Himself or his team?